welcome to the Rob Burgess Show. I am, of course, your host, Rob Burgess. On this, our 198th episode, our returning guest is Ash Burgess. You first heard Ash Burgess on episodes 16, 26, 27, 39, 58, 63, 77, 86, 191, 100, 124, 130, 136, 142, 143, 148, 151, 154, 165, 176, 184, 191, and episode 82, which also featured fellow regular guest Jonathan Fowler of the podcast. Ash Burgess has a dusty degree in religious studies and an appetite for both high and low culture. She strives to celebrate the best of every season with her young children. Follow her on Instagram at Ash Burgess, all one word, and subscribe to her YouTube channel. A quick programming note. If you want to hear the episode we recorded almost a year ago, before we began our homeschooling journey, that would be episode 176. And now on to the show.
Welcome.
Yes, I'm so glad to be here again.
I'm so glad you're here.
Yeah. It's me, and this time my sidecar is asleep and wearing the cutest dinosaur foot pajamas in the world.
Maybe for the last time ever.
I know, it's really sad because the cloud pajamas, which are also very cute, have busted a hole in like the toe part of the foot, and another part of the foot is ripping. Plus, I think she's just getting too tall for them. So, But these dinosaur pajamas have been through. She's the third that has worn them, but they're starting to get kind of threadbare. So
yeah,
it's very sad. We either have to retire them now to save them in case we have a fourth, or as you said, we're gonna have to like invest in a new replacement set of dinosaur pajamas. Although we'll always know it's not the original.
Yeah. It's been through all three.
Yeah. First mom, dad, probably.
I know.
I wish that, like, I could be as cute wearing dinosaur foot items of any kind as she can be.
I know.
But anyway, to get back onto topic, so I'm here once more.
You are. And this is, I'll have to look, I don't know what the exact date was the last time we put out the episode where we talked about right before our first year of homeschooling was to start.
It was probably around
this
time, maybe
a
little,
ago.
maybe August of last year.
Middle of lockdown.
Yeah, I think like August of last year was probably because we were like thinking we were going to start pretty soon, and we did start. And we were going to wait until like Labor Day, and then we started a little early because we got too excited.
But we've been through a whole year of homeschooling.
We have.
And I'm excited to talk about our reflections on that topic.
Yeah, I mean, I want to reflect back on, our first year, and then it kind of feels like it's still going, too, because, we took a little break.
Mm-hmm.
So we did kind of a full year. We started, last end of August. We did kind of what we thought of as kind of our full year, and then after a few weeks, though, we started back up into kind of a transitional summer schooling, just because, we found that, we wanted the routine. We kind of had been in a good routine, and we felt like we kind of wanted to just get back into it, and we realized so many advantages of just kind of moving towards a more year-round platform. But anyway, I mean, we can talk more about that later. But anyway, We're kind of still in it, but we're also gearing up for more as we kind of roll into the fall and we really officially start our second year.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to be, I think, a bigger and hopefully better year than ever because, not only do we have the experience of this past year to draw on, but we also have a second person joining us in the sense that we'll have our first grader, so we've got our rising first grader, and we also have our newly turned 4-year-old who's kind of rising into our kind of pre-K, preschool, level that we're going to be doing with her. So we're going to be, on the one hand, now we're doing something we've done before, but on the other hand, it's like going to be different because we're doing 2 kids at once now. And we've already sort of started to tiptoe into those waters with doing stuff with her over the summer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I think that was a good decision just to keep going.
I do too. Well, it was, and it came, I think, as partially it came for practical reasons, just to do with kind of our family dynamic and feeling like the kids were, a little bit at loose ends without the structure. Because, when we went into summer vacation, suddenly we had all this free time, which sounds great. But I do think that children in general, and maybe our kids specifically, do thrive with a more structured day. So it was, there were those practical concerns, and especially with, just the time and the era that we happen to be living in, there's less to do outside the house too. So I'm sure maybe in a different scenario, if we had more going on over the summer, it would be more like, oh, we have time to do more. But we're at home enough at this point in our lives that like it's good to have that structure in the home and to keep going. But also I feel like for me, that was part of kind of a general untethering from a traditional school schedule that I've kind of experienced, in the sense that I really kind of was awakened to the advantages of going to a more year-round platform. And that's something that I always said I would never do, because I always thought, oh, it's so great to have this break in the summer, I'll never. And then it's like you start to reevaluate, you know, why do I think that I need to do things a certain way and what's actually best for my family? And when I realized that if we did more of a year-round structure, we could take larger breaks when we want to. Like if we want to take a larger break around Christmas, or if we want to go on a vacation at a random time, we can, and we don't have to worry about how we'll make that up within the school year, because we're actually doing way more weeks and way more school days than we're required to. So we don't have to feel this pressure of we need to make sure that we've done the required number of days or weeks or whatever so that we're officially doing everything right and we're not neglecting our kids and we won't be in trouble with the state or whatever. I mean, the state we live in is super loose, but there's still some accountability, and if we ever move anywhere else or whatever, it's just nice kind of knowing that we have the built-in ability to be so flexible because we're actually really exceeding what we need to do, and that it's better for our kids because they're having the opportunity to do more. And in the subjects that they're really interested in, we can do way more because we have that extra time. And in the subjects where maybe we're struggling, we can slow things down and not be afraid we're slipping behind because we do have that extra time to take things slower and kind of go through things and make sure that within the year we'll have done just as much as we need to, even if we had to do it a little slower at certain points for someone if they're having an issue with certain concepts, you know? So I feel like, but also we can do really interesting studies we would never have time to do otherwise. Like this summer, the thing that really got us excited to start going again is that I found a science curriculum that's all about dinosaurs and prehistoric life. And that's something that our son is super interested in. And I'm actually, it's the first interest that he's had that I feel like I've been interested in the things he's been interested in before, but this is the first interest he's had that I've been like really, really excited about. Like, I've been really excited to learn more about that stuff too. And so it's something that we're kind of all doing together, and it's really, really fun. And we have time to do that because we just kind of started up with school again. Whereas otherwise we'd be thinking, how can we shoehorn this into our traditional school year, you know?
Like he was like distraught today when he thought for a time that we weren't going to be able to do our dinosaur studies today.
He was, and that's something that like, and I don't want to paint like a it's all roses picture. Like he's not like, not every school subject is something that he would be distraught if we said we were skipping the day for.
Right.
But it is nice to know that we are able to be doing something that he is like, every day, like he's asking me in the morning, like, are we doing this? And he's excited for it and he's ready to do it.
Yeah. But I'm interested to hear about the curriculum choices, because when you're a homeschool parent, that's the gift and the curse, right? Because
it is, and especially
it's up to you because it's not up to someone else. So.
And especially, I think, even the most for us than, you know, some other people, because some states mandate, you know, what subjects you teach and things like that. Our state is so incredibly loose that, I mean, and even in the states where they mandate what subjects you teach. We are registered and
legal. We have the email.
We are. No, we totally are. But I'm saying, like, some states, to register and be legal, you have to say and maybe even prove that you're covering certain subjects. Our state, you're just really on the loose, which I think is great for us. I mean, it's a little scary maybe for people that could be not doing enough for their kids. I personally feel like, even though I constantly struggle, as I think all parents do, or all good parents at least, struggle constantly with thinking, you know, am I doing enough for my kids, and always thinking, what more could I do? I do think that, even though I do have those feelings, of course, I do think that we really are going pretty far with our kids. Like, we're really doing a lot for them. And it's exciting. But did you want to talk about what we did last year and what worked and what didn't work, or did you want to talk more about what we're doing this year? Because I feel like last year...
But I feel like our choices from last year informed some of our decisions for next year.
They did. So should I kind of talk a little bit about what we did last year? Or, I mean, they're not really separate.
We talked about what we were going to do already in a previous episode, so I think people, if they've listened to that episode, would already know
so they would have
a
good foundation. So now I can talk more about what I'm planning to do, and I may reference back some things. Yeah. As far as what I've changed.
And you pretty much stuck with what you said you were going to do at that point, I assume.
I did. We did make some changes in that we actually completed 2 full elementary... We completed 2 full kindergarten math curriculums last year. So, I mean, I don't know if I mentioned the second curriculum in that, because I think we were just, we started with 1 curriculum, and we did complete that. And it was easy, and it was pretty light, and it didn't really, I feel like, do as much for us as it should have, although our son did love it, so I mean, that was nice. But we completed a whole secondary math curriculum, and now over the summer I'm actually doing just a little bit more kindergarten math too, because it's just it's a super important area for me to make sure that we're really nailing it. That is a big change that we've made with math, in that, so last year we started out with it was master books, lessons for living education. It was a very easy kind of easing into the waters, kind of a story-based math curriculum. And then we completed that very quickly. Because he was it was very easy, and I basically just had him do a week's worth of lessons every day. So we got through that in just a couple months. And then we got another curriculum, which was called, I'm grasping to remember the exact name of it. Kindergarten Math with Confidence. And that, I think, was really good in a lot of ways. It really helped me mentally to kind of understand a lot about teaching math and about, how to do certain things. But wasn't a perfect fit for us, and we did complete the whole program, and we did well with it, but I still wanted to move into something else. So for this school year, I decided we wanted to move into Dimensions Math, which is made by the same people who do the Singapore Math. It's basically Singapore Math, but it's slightly adapted for an American audience. I'm not really sure the total difference. It's the same methodology, it's just slightly different in the layout. But anyway, I wanted to make the switch to that. So I got, and the way that they do that, they put out each level is supposed to be kind of half a school year. So I got him the second half of the kindergarten year just to work on over the summer, because they do some things differently and introduce certain concepts in their kindergarten level that weren't introduced in either of the levels we've been through. They work with number bonds, which is basically addition. But it's just it's a different conceptual way of thinking about addition that neither of the other 2 curriculums that I used did. So I wanted to do this kind of second half of their kindergarten just to kind of make sure that we were on par with that. And we're going through it very fast, though, so I think by midway through September we'll probably be into the 1st grade. But so we're working on that, and that's been going well so far too, although I still think it's not a perfect fit. I'm still I feel like I'm experiencing I wouldn't say Goldilocks, because that's only you try on 3 different things and the third one's the fit, but I'm having that sort of an experience with math curriculums. I really want to, I think because I had a history as a child of struggling with math, it's so important to me to make sure that is not the story for our kids, that I feel I'm in that sort of I'll keep trying things on until I find the perfect fit, or maybe there is no perfect fit, but I'm committed to questing for the perfect fit, ongoingly.
I will say he does seem to take well to math in general, I feel.
He does. He does. I mean, I think the only struggle is just that like many people I think who generally pick up things quickly, he chafes at the idea of having to exert himself. So it's I'm trying to find ways to kind of build stamina.
He's good at things, but it's a lot of the things this is obviously everybody does this to a certain degree. I mean, you like the things you like probably because you are naturally have a are adapted to them and would, you enjoy the feeling of being good at something,
Yeah.
Like, and anything that, like, didn't immediately like that, it's like, hey, wait a second.
Of course. But I've also, the other thing I'm excited about with math is that I have a supplementary curriculum that I've also purchased that I'm planning to use all this year along with the Singapore Dimensions, which we're going to be using this year, both for our rising first grader and also for our, going to be in preschooler. I also have a curriculum that I've got called Wild Math, which is basically... I'm using it supplementarily, but for someone who's maybe more extreme, you could use this as your primary curriculum, because it does, and now that I've looked through a lot of math programs, I can see if something really includes what it should or doesn't, and this really does include everything. But it's all about how to teach math, like, outdoors, and using, like, natural materials. Mm. And it does include, like, a full, like everything that you would need to teach for like each grade. So it's actually a really robust curriculum. But I like it because not only does it give you ideas for how you could do those things outdoors, a lot of them are adaptable for just indoors and just kind of more hands-on, or like kind of giving you the instructions for how you could create practice problems in the specific area your kid is working on. So, if they're working on multiplication or addition or number bonds, it kind of gives you instructions so that you could then formulate the practices for them, which I'm excited to use. And it's something that I can use both with, like I said, like our toddler and also our, going to be in first grader. So I'm excited about that. Mm-hmm. I've also read a book called Mathematical Mindsets, which was really helpful to me in kind of getting ideas about just what's important in teaching math and how to make people, not just how to make your kids be good at math, or even, this was even something you could apply to yourself, but also just like thinking about how to make math pleasurable to someone who might not realize that it's something that they could like. And I felt like that was really helpful to me, even me as someone who've never considered themselves a mathy person, to really take the time and think about kind of the beauty in mathematics and the aesthetics, because I love aesthetic things and I love shapes and all those things, and to really think about that in a more mathematical way and have like more of an appreciation in that sense. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. But I'm also interested in talking about, in addition to curriculum. I mean, not in addition to. It's
not in addition to, because we have so much more to say about curriculum.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, but go on with what you were saying.
Well, you mentioned both of our kids, and that is a change from last year. We were really just planning for the one, and now we've kind of got two going on.
Yes, we have two going on, and
because we have kind of a one-room schoolhouse situation going on here, it's kind of, things inevitably bleed over from one to the other, so...
Well, and I feel like, though, and that's part of the reason why we're doing more for our, rising preschooler than we did for our son, because with him it was just kind of like, yeah, we should probably do a little bit to kind of get him ready for kindergarten, make sure he knows his letters and his numbers. Mm-hmm. And, that's pretty much what we did. And, I mean, we naturally have always been, like a kind of a reading family and stuff like that. So, I mean, I think he was prepared in that way, but we didn't put a lot of effort into being like, now we're doing preschool, We did a few, like, workbooks and stuff with him just to kind of brush up right beforehand. But other than that, we pretty much just kind of let it happen organically. Kind of, I guess, like an unschooling sort of model. Mm-hmm. But, of course, children that have older siblings always want to do what the older siblings do. Mm-hmm. I mean, so our new 4-year-old, she always wants to know, like, if he's getting out a workbook, she's like, where's my workbook? And where's my school stuff? And when do I get to do this?
She's not willing to just be, like, on the sidelines.
She's not willing to, like, sit on the floor and play while he's at the table doing math problems. She, like, wants to do some math problems, too.
Yes, absolutely.
And so that's exciting, though, and so it kind of... And there are things that I would have maybe in retrospect done differently as far as preparing him for kindergarten.
I think he made all his marks.
Oh, he made it fine. No, it's not that he didn't do well, it's just that there are some things that, had we done them earlier, and I've never been one to say you should push early academics, but there are some things that had we done them earlier, we I did feel all through the kindergarten year that I was like trying to do a lot. And there are some things that if we had just sort of slowly started doing them a few years before, then we would have sort of had less to do in kindergarten, if that makes sense. Or we could have moved on to other things or whatever. Not to, like, push him forward more, but just to kind of, like what I said about how we finished 2 math curriculums.
Uh-huh.
The first math curriculum that we did in kindergarten, even though it was a kindergarten math curriculum, we easily could have just done that curriculum the year before. Mm-hmm. And then he would have just been ready for the second curriculum, and we could have just taken, like, a meandering path and not, like... You know what I mean? And then I would have felt... Because I did feel a little bit of stress last year before I had kind of untethered myself from the idea of following a more traditional school schedule. I felt sort of pressure to be like, oh my gosh, like, if we skipped a day of math or, like, a day of handwriting or something, I felt like, oh no, we're, like, slipping behind. Mm-hmm. And I had a planner, and I had planned out what was happening, and so then if we missed a day, it's like, oh no, how am I going to make this day? You know what I mean? I felt like a certain pressure to keep, like, pushing us forward.
Are you saying you're not going to use a planner this year?
I'm planning a lot, but instead of planning, like, you know, planner where I'm, like, planning, like, what we're doing every day, I more have, like, a routine planned. And in my mind, I have a routine planned of, like, what I want to get done in the week and when I think it will be happening. But it's very flexible. Mm-hmm. And I also now understand that, like, let's say I'm imagining that certain things happen on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And, like, one Tuesday, it doesn't happen. I'm not going to be like, oh no, now on Thursday we have to do Tuesday and Thursday. I'm just going to be like, all right, so on Thursday we're doing Tuesday, and then we're doing original Thursday next Tuesday, you know? And that's okay because we have that leisure time. We have that extra time built in. Whereas last year, I just always felt like a little bit of a sense of emergency of like, oh no, you know, if we don't do all 5 math lessons this week, next week we're slipping behind and soon we're not going to, like, finish the curriculum. Mm-hmm. And obviously, I felt too much of a sense of urgency because somehow I was able to complete 2 full year-long math curriculums within last year. But mm-hmm. still... but going back to what you were saying about now we have 2 people mm-hmm. working. So there's things like I was saying, so there's things that, like, I would do differently as far as, like, there are some things we could have introduced sooner or more concentratedly with our son if we wanted to. And I don't think he was harmed by not doing that, but it would have been fine for him if we had done it. And, you know, for our daughter, since she's wanting those things, I'm excited to do more with her. Mm-hmm. Also, I do think that it's an attention issue. I don't necessarily think that academically she needs much work for preschool so much as I think she needs the attention of having us concentrate that attention on her, especially because so much, like when my son was a preschooler, I mean, my attention was just on the kids and, like, doing stuff with them. Now that he is a schooler, so much of my day is doing his school stuff with him that I feel like, you know, our daughter, you know, she's the middle child, and I feel like she gets kind of lost in the shuffle between, you know, my energy is so concentrated on doing school stuff and taking care of the baby that I think that more than anything, the reason why I think it'll be good for her to be doing the preschool stuff is just for her to know that I'm focusing that concentrated attention on doing some things that are specially designed for her. Because, I mean, don't get me wrong, she's already, like, especially this summer, she's been joining us for the stuff we're doing. Like, she's joined us in, like, that dinosaur stuff that I mentioned before. Mm-hmm. So she's doing stuff with us. Like, we're doing a lot of, like, more and more this year, we're going to be doing more family-style learning. Mm-hmm. But I do think that it's good for her to feel like there are some things that are specially for her, and mm-hmm. we're concentrating on her, and she's getting that individual attention. And that it's things that are designed for her. Because even though she is able to join us family style for some of the stuff mm-hmm. we're doing that's designed for an older child, and I think it can be good for a kid to do stuff that's like a reach for them, it's also nice for people to have something age appropriate that's really just like to their interest or their developmental needs. Mm-hmm. So I'm excited for her to be doing more of that.
Yeah. But I'm interested to hear what really some maybe things that you thought were going to work out curriculum-wise that didn't, or maybe you didn't work out quite as well as you'd hoped, or maybe it wasn't apparent that it was making an impact?
Okay, well, I think the biggest issue that I've had is with teaching kind of language arts, and I think that is interesting because I would say that that's my personally strongest area, but I actually wonder if that makes it harder for me to teach, because if you, like, I feel like I'm struggling to find a way to say this without sounding conceited or, like, braggy. But I'm really good at language arts, like, naturally. And that's not to say that I haven't struggled in certain areas. Because, I mean, language arts is a pretty broad umbrella term. And there are certain things that I would not say I'm naturally good at, or I haven't been, like, trained in, and so I don't really have that as a strong... Like, I wouldn't say I'm a great speller. But in general, like, just as far as, like, how I've performed in, like, classes and, like, tests, I would say that I have a stronger natural aptitude for language arts type of things than, like, most people. Mm-hmm. And I think that possibly makes it difficult for me to teach certain things, because when something just kind of seems obvious to you, it's hard to figure out how to teach it if it just seems like it's sort of apparent. Mm-hmm. If that makes sense. Also, I've kind of had to figure out, like, how much instruction in certain areas is actually necessary. Like, how much effort are you supposed to expect to need to put into teaching someone how to read? Or, like, what is an age-appropriate amount of effort that you should expect someone to put into, like, understanding, like, the kind of more abstract or more, like, emotional meaning of a text? And how do you teach someone how to extract that kind of meaning?
I don't know.
But that's the kind of thing that I think maybe if it was more difficult for me, it would be easier for me to understand how to teach it.
Be like Dead Poets Society, I guess.
Sure. I mean, I don't know where there are any caves that we can go into around here.
I don't know. That's a tough one.
And because, yeah.
Well, like they said, like, to bring it back to Dead Poets Society, doesn't there that scene where he's, like, describes, like, oh, the poem is supposed to be this, and it's like a math problem, and he's like, no, it's not math, or whatever. So that's probably why it's harder to teach. It's probably easier to teach math. Cause
no, it is easier to teach math, even for me, and that was the thing that I had so much anxiety about, like, going into last year. 1 + 1 = 2 no matter what, and you know what I mean? Like, well, and it's like, I feel like I had so much anxiety going into teaching math because I don't want to mess it up. And it's important to me that my kids feel strong and good in math. But for me, it's like, I'm kind of learning the math with him. And it's very straightforward. And I feel very excited about, like, where it's going. With the language arts, it's more like, how do I communicate this? And am I doing enough? And I think, too, though, part of it is that Here's to kind of, this is related somewhat to language arts, although I feel good about what I did with language arts last year. Mm-hmm. But there's more that I would like to do this year, and some things I'd like to do a little differently. But related to what you were saying about, you know, what things worked and what didn't, I think that I've really had to think hard about my ability to cobble things together. Because I always have the impulse, like, when I look at curriculum, and it's so expensive, and it's like, what are you even really paying for? I could definitely do this myself if I had time. But that's the if. It's if I had time. And I think that I need to be really realistic with myself, because I've even shown you certain things and you've been like, oh no, well, you could easily put this together. But it's like, I literally feel like I'm being extravagant sometimes when I, like, take too long in the bathroom. So it's like, maybe I don't have time to, like, cobble this together as well as if I just pay the, like, $50 for someone else to have, like, planned this for me.
I almost Not exactly, but I almost feel this is similar to people that are like life coaches and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's like, what you're really buying is that someone has like sat down and like made a plan. And it's like,
Sure.
you're going to like buy into a pre-made plan that like someone can help you achieve. You know what I mean? It's
Is
like,
that what life coaches do? Because I've never.
I don't know. I've never been to one
I don't
either.
know
I'm
what
just
life-
assuming.
I just thought life coaches were like, what do you really want to be doing right now? And then they like tell you to do it or something.
Like, you are the one that has to do all the
Yes.
stuff
Yes.
that the life coach tells you anyway. So it's
Mhm.
like, you could just tell yourself all this stuff.
Yeah.
And it's probably all stuff you know. And it's
It's
like,
all stuff that you know to tell yourself, but for me, it's like
work
with,
hard, believe in yourself,
Yes.
focus.
But with the homeschooling
What do you
planning,
really
though,
want?
it's like I'm totally able to like pick a book to read and then think of fun projects to do about the book and then think of connected resource materials and discover what is out there at the library that we could connect to this and then plan out which pages to read. But it's like, that takes so much time. And I feel like I have no time. I feel like every day I have a list of 50 things to do and I get 20 of them done.
Yes. Obviously.
So it's like, yes, in theory, I'm fully intellectually capable of cobbling together something as good or maybe even better than what I could purchase. But sometimes it's good to just admit that, like, I'm not really capable of doing that because I don't have the time. And so maybe it is better to just, like, invest in, like...
At the same time, not to put anyone on blast, but when you showed me the curriculum kind of outline of something you were interested in getting... Not naming no names here, but
But you just thought that was, like, too twee seeming.
No, not at all. Like, but it was just like... Then you're like having a puppet show and painting pegs, and it's like... That is the opposite of what I wanted
But what you said is that you think that our children aren't the kind of children that respond well to, like, painting peg dolls and having puppet shows. And that's probably true, because I know that would devolve into chaos.
I only say that because I feel that our kids are a little bit more rough and tumble than, like, a lot of other kids. Like, I feel like a lot of other kids are just kind of a little wispier than our kids.
I do think that, like, our kids are, like, strong dark coffee to the, like,
yes,
coffee with milk and sugar of, like, a regular child.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. They're very strong.
Yeah, and even in, like, different ways than each other. Like, our kids
Good,
are not
bad,
even... Our kids are, like, not even very similar to one another.
No.
They're just both... And
Well,
I think our third too, but
yes.
I mean, she's yet to enter the schooling situation and all, like, as a student, exactly. But I think our kids are all just intense and bold and, like, vigorous.
I'm just saying, for your average, like, child may be placated by a good old-fashioned puppet theater. But
Then again, I feel like sometimes I'll do an activity with the kids that really surprises me with, like, how much they like it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for years, you scoffed at... Because I mentioned to you that a lot of people say we should get those, like... You know those flowing, colorful silk scarves?
That's
And
only because each one...
like,
how much does it cost?
They're like $16 to $20 a piece.
That's what I'm saying, like, per scarf.
We have gotten that much enjoyment out of them already in just, like, the few months that we've had them.
Yeah, yes. No, now that I've seen...
But I think there's a lot of things like that.
Them.
The same with, like, the, like, really boring-looking Montessori-inspired toys. I scoffed at those for years, but those are, like, the only toys that the baby plays with. She loves, like, the pegs, and she's putting them in, and she's taking them out, and she's putting them in.
I was like, who are you?
No, but it's, like, those type of things, kids like that stuff, even if it doesn't seem as appealing.
So basic, though.
But that's what babies like, because they like to fixate on, like, one skill that they can really develop and master.
Yeah.
And they love the feeling of the expensive natural materials underneath their fingertips.
They can feel the extra expense.
They can.
Yeah.
They really can.
No, I'm not. Yeah, definitely.
But I feel like there is, like, more that we want to talk about. I don't want to make your episode too long, but I feel like there's so much more to say.
Well, say it.
Well, I mean, so I mentioned one book that I read, The Mathematical Mindsets, but I also, over the summer, have been doing some kind of, I would like to call it, like, professional development by, like, reading some popular homeschooling books. And that's something I didn't do going into homeschooling just because, I mean, I had a new baby last year and didn't really have time to do that. And also, you know, we mentioned it in our previous episode. We haven't mentioned it now. I mean, I was homeschooled for, like, most of my childhood, so I didn't, like, it's not like this was something that was foreign to me, and I was like, how do I do this? Like, I feel like I had a good jumping off point. But I decided this year just to kind of still read some of the popular books that are out now, to get ideas. So I read The Brave Learner, which is super popular right now. I think it's by Julie, I want to say Bogart. And that book was, like, so good until it wasn't. Mm. And I was actually really surprised because I know people love that book, and I totally understand why now that I've read it. Because it was really, really great in, like, so many ways. Like, I felt like of all the books I read, that was my favorite until it, like, basically sent me into, like, a depression, like, towards the end of the book. Like, I feel like because the part that was so good was that it gave realistic and practical, but still things that felt like they were, an inspiration and a contribution to my ideas about, like, what to do in the homeschool to make things work, like how to motivate your kids. Because, I mean, one of the really good points that she makes in that book is that you as the homeschool parent feel like you have something to prove because you're doing this thing that's, like, a little bit different than what the rest of society is maybe bought into. So it's like you feel like you've got something to prove, and that's a motivation right there to make sure that things are going well. Your kid has, like, nothing to prove. They're in the most, because when you're uncomfortable, that's when you're motivated. You're uncomfortable as the homeschooling parent because you're like, I need to make sure that this works out for my kids and that this looks okay to everyone else. As the kid, you're the most comfortable because you're in your home with your family, the most comfortable place ever. So you have, like, less motivation than anyone to, like, do. You have nothing to prove as a kid. Like, do you need to prove, I mean, hopefully you don't feel like you need to prove to your parents that you're, like, smart and exciting and good, you know what I mean? So it's like, and you're home, you're in your pajamas, So I think that was a good point in just thinking about, like, the mindset of, like, of course you as the parent have more of a natural fire to be like, we need to make sure this is all happening. And then giving actual useful ideas, though, and how you can excite your learner to, like, get them to, like, want to do things. So I thought that was so helpful. And there were some other things like that I felt like were, like, really inspirational, and I totally understand why people really like this. But then at the end of the book, and, like, I did fear that this was coming, because throughout the book, whenever she would tell stories about her family, whenever she would mention her husband, she would refer to him as either by his first name or as, like, my children's father. And so that's why I feared that this was coming. But then towards the end of the book, she, like, gets a divorce. And that was really sad because it just kind of feels like, well, I mean, I know a lot of people get divorces and it's really not one individual person's fault if a divorce happens, because no matter what you do, there's a second person in your relationship and it could be their fault that the divorce has happened. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I don't totally, like, it's not like I'm saying, like, I cast shade on this woman because she got a divorce. At the same time, though, that makes everything that she said less aspirational in the sense that it's like your entire family kind of failed. I mean, in a certain way. I mean, that sounds really harsh, but I think I mostly mean that in the sense that I don't think that, like, your entire family has failed because you got a divorce. But in the sense that, like, there were certain things that she mentioned throughout the book, and then later, in light of the fact that she got a divorce, maybe it's like, maybe this isn't actually just the way things are. Maybe this is just the way things are in your failing dynamic. Because, like, there was a whole section where she talked about how, like, your home will always be messy and you'll never be able to get the people in your family to clean up to your standards and they'll never help you enough.
Yeah, you're
and
like, look how well that worked out for you, lady.
And it's like, and then later she gets a divorce and it's like, I'm not. And, like, of course, it's like, my home is never clean to my standards, but it's like, I still have hope that one day I'll figure out how to manage things, you know what I mean? But it's like, she was just so, like, I don't know, I just felt like towards the end of the book, she had all these chapters about how you should, like, give up on, like, trying to, like, have, like, a clean house and things like that. And then, like, very shortly after those chapters, which were very disheartening, she's like, and then we had a divorce, and it's like, well,
I mean, maybe she got the book contract at a different time in her life.
But it just felt so depressing and sad because, like, most of the book was so, like, optimistic and it felt very useful and energetic, and then towards the end it really just felt like things kind of ran to ground. So there was that book, which I took a lot of good away from, but at the same time I felt so bad by the end that I was like, this is not really working out.
Yeah, was it even worth it?
But there were still, like, so many things about that book that I liked that it's just, like, I wish that, like, that book could have left out those parts and I would have liked it more. And then I also read Call of the Wild and Free, and let me preface this by saying that Wild and Free is wild plus sign free. And I had never been aware, I was aware of this book, but I wasn't aware of any of the other, like, things surrounding this person who wrote the book before going into it. And I felt like this was another book that, like, it was less useful to me than The Brave Learner was, probably because it was more targeted at someone who's just considering homeschooling, and it's, like, seems like a new and dangerous idea to them. Whereas since I was homeschooled as a child, homeschooling did not seem like a dangerous or new idea to me. So I wasn't exactly the target audience. Also, even though there was a lot that was really good, which I'll get into after I mention what was not good about it, there was a lot that I felt like that was not good about it, which was that apparently the person who wrote this book operates some kind of a website and does, like, homeschooling conferences, so it's kind of like a whole, like, the Wild plus Free is like a brand. And so it felt kind of like a soft backdoor infomercial for, like, joining their, like, conferences. And, like, I'm always a little bit like, I'm the opposite of a joiner. Like, I don't want to come to your group. Now. I don't want to come to your group. I don't want to come to the conference. I don't want to pay, like, $3,000 to, like, camp in the woods with the other people that got tricked into coming to your conference. So that part was, like, not so good. The part that was good, though, was, I think I mentioned more towards the beginning of this episode, like, the feeling of, like, really untethering from feeling tied to a traditional school schedule. And that was the part where that was the inspiration I really took from that, was, like, feeling like, why do I have to feel this sense of, like, oh, we can't do any school on, like, the weekend? I mean, I usually like to take the weekend off to have, like, a rest and reset and prep for the week, but I still feel like more the idea of, like, taking on kind of a homeschooling as, like, a family lifestyle, not as something that happens during school hours. And that's something that I felt like, even though I was homeschooled as a kid, I definitely felt like my family always kind of operated on the idea of, like, you know, like, my parents were sort of cautious about taking us out and about during school hours. Like, to be seen not doing, like, scholastic things, you know, between the hours of 9 and 3. And I feel like we always felt very, like, even when we were, like, at home, it's, like, at 3 o'clock, it's, like, school's over, I, like, refuse to do any more schoolwork, you know what I mean? And I feel like, and we always took, like, the certain, you know, the school vacations and stuff kind of in line with the school system. And we were very, like, on track with that. And I've just really realized that, like, I don't need or want to feel bound to that. And that was, like, the good, I think, that I took from that book, was that it was very inspirational kind of in that avenue.
Yeah, there's no reason to feel tied to that.
Yeah, or just at least to, like, if you have certain ideas about when something should be happening and what pressure you should put on yourself to evaluate why do you have that idea and is that actually working for you and why are you doing it, or even just, like, the pressure.
Let me get on my soapbox here and say that I think the whole idea that you're supposed to go on a certain schedule to school and then you get out, it's like, it's just training you to work at a job for 40 hours a week, and they're just, like, getting your mindset, you know what I mean? It's just like...
But I'm more interested in, and this is something that was touched on both in that Wild and Free book and The Brave Learner, I'm more interested in just being, like, our family lifestyle is of, like, education.
Yeah.
And it's inspired me, too, something that both of those books inspired me to do also, is to do more active learning of my own in front of our children, instead of putting it off. Like, things like, you know, like, I'm interested in maybe, like, learning how to watercolor. I should do that, and I should do it, like, while our children can see. You know? And, like, being more of a participant in the learning. and just being like, this is our family lifestyle. Like, I definitely have noticed little things like, I mean, we've always been a reading family, but like, I know you've been making more of a point to read when our kids can see you instead of, waiting until they're asleep to read. And I do see that they like pick up books more to look at. And like, kids love to copy what they see. And so things like that, but just to think of it more as a lifestyle and it's happening all the time, not like okay, school hours have begun and now school hours have ended. It's like, it's kind of always happening. It's like just part of who we are as our family.
Yeah. It's like at 3:01, like someone asks you to do something school related, you're like, nope.
But I definitely feel like that was like my experience as a kid. Like, I definitely felt like there was very much a like, I'm sorry, it's 4 o'clock. There's no way I'm going to like do this. Like, whatever. But like, I want to start our kids out not having that. And in some ways, though, I think the challenge is like, I'm trying now to find more materials, like stories and things that show homeschool families. Because I feel like you always see things, as a kid, like stories about kids going to school and being in the classroom. And not that they shouldn't experience those stories, because I think it's important to see what other people's lives are like. But I also don't want them to always feel so much like on the outside looking in and like everyone else is normal and they're weird and like everyone else is a part of the society in a different way. Although I think that is different now because so many people panically had to like emergency homeschool in the past year that I think society has changed a little bit around that, which is nice for us.
Oh man, like we were talking about it the other day. We were so ahead of the curve on this one.
We were, because
everyone's just trying to get where
the top choice
right now.
Well, and I do think though that it's different for us because homeschooling was always the top choice for us. So for us, it was kind of a happy thing that something we looked forward to for years was finally beginning.
I felt like such an outcast to like having made this choice,
Yes, but that's the nice thing
now
is
I'm
that
you're homeschooling now. Now you're homeschooling.
No, but
homeschooled.
But the nice thing though is that I feel like because of that, we haven't faced the backlash that we spent years steeling ourselves for.
Oh yeah,
because I was steeling ourselves for so much backlash from just society in general and even some family members and just like a general like feeling of like, oh, we have to explain ourselves and some people will be upset and worried about what we're doing. But instead it just happened at the same time when everyone was like emergency doing it. So I feel like we didn't experience the same kind of blowback that we, would have otherwise. I'm sure in years to come, some people might still question that we're continuing on this path, but I think it's been lessened because there are still more people that are going to continue.
It's the same thing as working from home. It's become normalized now.
Exactly.
We've all realized that we can all do it.
And that's the thing too, like what I said before about my family and my parents, and I wasn't saying that as a slam against them with my parents not wanting to take us too many places during school hours. That's because and I remember this happening as a kid. Like we would go, the rare times that we did go to somewhere that wasn't like the library or something during like traditional school hours, like random strangers would be like, aren't you supposed to be in school? Yeah, right. And like stuff like that, So and I think that probably like, not as much of an issue anymore.
Oh, sure.
So I do think that makes it so much easier. Because, it is like working from home.
100%. But were there other books that you read?
Yes. So I read one called like The Read Aloud Family, I believe it was called. It's by a woman who has a podcast called The Read Aloud Revival. And in some ways I felt like this was an unnecessary book for me to read because I've been convinced about reading aloud. I mean, I think if I had to say what the best thing that my mom did for us homeschooling-wise, or just, I guess, as a family-wise was, she instilled that love of literature by, reading aloud to us, from the time we were babies and, ongoing until, when we were little kids. She read picture books and storybooks and, and then she read aloud novels and stuff. And I think that was really, really great for us. So I didn't really need to read this book to be, like, convinced that we should be a family that reads to our kids because we were already doing that. But it was still helpful in the sense that it gave a lot of ideas, and this helped me out a lot with what I was talking about before, with struggling with language arts and thinking, how do I teach reading comprehension? What do I do? It helped me to feel that I was on the right path in focusing more on, at least at this point, and I may reevaluate going forward, but, like, not feeling like I have to, like, drill unpleasant reading comprehension questions so much as just read and foster that love of literature. But also it did provide some really good specific examples of questions that you could use that can be adapted to pretty much anything you read to help to develop your kids' reading comprehension skills. Like questions that you can ask them that will then help to, you know, make them think about the text and follow-up questions and stuff like that. So in that way, it was super helpful.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really liked it, even though, like I said, it was sort of like, I'm already convinced. You don't need to, like... Because there was a fair amount of the book spent just kind of convincing you that, like, you should read to your kids and it'll be great and it's good for them. And it's like, I'm already on board with that.
Our editor probably gave him, like, a big, long note that was like, no, but you really need to, like, convince people. Why is this important?
Why should I read to my children? Yeah, exactly. So I feel like there was a fair amount of the book devoted to that was, like, not necessary for me, but I still did get a lot of value out of the book. So that was good. And then the book that I'm reading now, which actually was suggested to me by that book because I listened to a few episodes of the podcast after I read the book. And on one of the episodes, she had the author, his name is Ken, I want to say like Follett or something, but that's not exactly what it is, so don't quote me on that. But I'm reading a book called How to Teach Your Kids Shakespeare.
Mm.
And he was a guest on her podcast, and his book sounded really interesting, and so I'm reading the book now, and I'm actually preparing to start using his method with our kids, which I'm excited about. His basic thing is that he did this with his children, and then he's written out how he did it, so you could just kind of copy his method if you want.
Mm-hmm.
Which basically is he started when I think his daughter was 6, because he was like really into Shakespeare, and then his daughter came home and she quoted a line from Shakespeare that her elementary school teacher had taught them. And he hadn't thought before that he could introduce Shakespeare to his kids in a meaningful way, you know, before that age. But then he realized that he could. And so basically he gives you a method for helping your kids to memorize some. And he has very specific passages that he's picked that are more appropriate for children and in order of like appropriateness and ease. Because I mean, even though it's like a single book, so I mean, you could plow through it, but his thing is that he did this over like a 12-year period of time with his kids. So like he's just talking about memorizing a few selected passages maybe per year. So I mean, I'm just going to start with a few passages and kind of, you know, see how I like it and go from there. But it's just a method for helping your kids to really sort of read and understand and memorize a few passages of Shakespeare. And the goal being, not only it kind of builds their love of language, and it familiarizes them with some really like known quotes from Shakespeare and plot points that like occur in literature all over, but also just to like build confidence. Because it's like with like his point is that like with his kids, he saw that like for them to like learn a little bit of this, like they gained so much confidence because they were proud of themselves for having memorized this, and also being able to like pick that out in, you know, different, you know, TV shows and books and stuff. It gives you that boost of like, oh man, I know this, and you feel good about yourself, and that's really helpful. So I'm very interested in the idea, and you know, I'm interested in kind of experimenting with it and seeing how it goes. So that's what I'm reading right now.
Mm-hmm. But I'm interested to know what your general philosophy is now. You want to talk about that? I mean, you kind of talked about that a little bit already, but like how has that developed through experience and also reading these other people's experiences, I guess?
I mean, I guess my general philosophy hasn't changed a lot, but certain aspects of it I think have developed. I mean, my philosophy has always been like, I'm a very academic-minded person. So I would say we're academic homeschoolers. And if we had to label ourselves, because I mean, different people homeschool for different reasons. Some people homeschool because they like are counterculture and they want to like escape from the culture. And that's certainly, you know, part of it for us, but that's not like the main point, isn't just to be like, we're not a part of the mainstream culture. And just for some people, that's the main point. For some people, it's very specifically, very deeply rooted in like a specific religion and a specific worldview. And that's not really for us either. I mean, we have our own beliefs, but that's not our primary reason for homeschooling. And I think for us, it's always been kind of a combination of academic and also just lifestyle wise. So, which I guess it's counterculture, but maybe not the same counterculture as I would say. If I use the word counterculture, there's like a certain image I have, and I would say that's not exactly what I'm saying, but I think we've never wanted to raise our kids just to be normal people. I mean, you would agree with me in that. Like,
sure.
We never want it to just be like childhood is a training ground to just be a regular person in society. And that's not even to say, it's not that we necessarily want to put so much pressure on them to do something that's like, quote unquote, spectacular, as in like, oh, everyone will see this and notice it. Like, I'm not saying they have to be like famous or rich or anything like that, but just, we don't want them to feel like, it's not just like, do you know what I'm getting at? Like, I mean, you obviously know what I'm getting at, but I'm trying to explain it, to your audience.
Well, I mean, it's like I was saying about school training you, I feel like a lot of the special things about our children would be worn down by a traditional.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think our children are great candidates for a traditional schooling experience.
I don't no.
But also, I mean, I think too, I think you and I think we agree on a lot of things, but I think for me, I'm more on the academic side, to me, because that's something that I'm very enjoying of.
No, I like it.
No, I know you just. No, I'm saying we agree, but I'm saying I would say I'm more heavily academics, and also I want our kids to be interesting weirdos. I would say that you are more heavily leaning on the side of them being interesting weirdos, and also you want them to be academic. But together, that's a good balance.
I don't want them to just be weirdos for the sake of being weirdos. I want them to be their authentic selves in the best way possible. Exactly.
But that's what I'm saying.
I feel like tradition, from my own experience, I didn't feel like I was, helped to be the best version of myself by a traditional structure.
Exactly. And that's perfectly what I'm getting at, though. We're homeschooling because we want to try to help our kids be the best versions of themselves, and not to try to shoehorn that into any sort of a pre-existing mold.
I love reading. I love learning. I did not enjoy the experience of going to school.
Well, because so much of it is not about the learning and the reading and everything. And also, I mean, and there's the related reason, which is that we want to have a super strong family. To hopefully not end up like the woman from that one book. But I mean, not to make light of her situation, because that's mean, and who knows what happened to her. But I just mean part of it too is that we want to spend as much time with our kids as we can.
Yeah, they grow up so fast, as they say,
And this is our family. This is our time to invest in them, and as much as we can.
Yeah, I can't imagine shipping them off every day. I mean, that's got to be so hard for people. I mean, that send their kids to school. I mean,
it has to be hard. I know people do it all the time. I think some people like it. I mean,
no, I know,
and I don't think that's bad. I think that's just
it's a different choice. This is a different choice, and but I'm saying lots of people do that. But
yeah.
But since we haven't been doing that, it's hard for me to imagine.
Yeah, it would be a major shift.
That would be oh my gosh, for how long?
But going back to how my philosophy has changed, I would say my philosophy has changed in that I went into it leaning, and I still think I'm very academic minded, but I do think that I've opened up more in the kind of interesting weirdo direction. Mm-hmm. I've drifted further and further away from caring at all about what the rest of society thinks I should be doing, or trying to make sure that I maintain certain standards that aren't set by myself. I have high standards for what
I'm sorry, have you seen the rest of society? Come on, we don't need to live up to that.
But I mean, I think I have very high standards for what I want our kids to learn, and how 100%. I want them to develop. And I want them to pursue higher education. I want them to go to college, and I want them to go into, interesting fields of study and use their knowledge in whatever ways, work well for them. And at the same time, though, I think that I have moved further and further away from feeling like I need to measure myself against the progress of others, or what should your kindergartner be learning or whatever. And it's I think I've more leaned into the idea that it's more about the destination than the journey, which I guess that's the opposite, because a lot of people say it's the journey, not the destination, or something. Whatever. You know what I'm saying? I'm saying the destination is, of course, that we want our kids to be well-educated and well-rounded and feel comfortable and excited.
It's the journey,
learning.
not the destination.
But what I'm saying is that it's the destination, not the journey.
So you're trying to get somewhere and
I'm
you
saying,
don't care how you get there?
I care how I get there, but I think how you get there is less important in the sense that I think I was previously very tied to the idea of, like, my kids will always be absolutely on par with their grade level peers of whatever grade we say they are and what age they are. And now I'm kind of like, as long as by the time they're ready for college, they're on par. So what if one year they're a little behind and another year they're a little ahead?
Mm-hmm.
That's why I'm saying it's the destination, not the journey. I have a destination in mind, but I'm much more comfortable than ever before with the idea that the journey could not follow the smooth kind of set pathway.
That's fair. But I think that's more natural than being more rigid about it.
Yeah.
And I think people catch up quickly often after lagging for...
And it's like, I had to kind of develop in that area because, like, I'm not a very flexible person in general. And so I went into it being like, I will never be flexible in certain ways. And then I've kind of realized, like, why are you being inflexible? And, like, what are you trying to prove? And how is this helping anyone?
Mm-hmm. That's good, though.
Yeah.
What about, how do you feel I've performed in our first year?
Oh, good. I mean, you're definitely more in, like, a supporting role.
Yeah,
like, I feel
really,
like I'm
not taking the lead at all. So
I mean, I feel like I'm doing, like, all of, like, the teaching and stuff, but I feel like it's still good that, like, you know, I think the kids know you're interested in, like, the things they're learning about and stuff. And, like, you found us that really good book about sauropods.
Oh, yeah.
And, like, you didn't even know it at the time, but, like, it was right before our unit on sauropods is, like, started. So it was, like, so helpful today. Yeah.
That's a good book. Gotta get the theropod one.
Yeah, no, I need to find that one. I'm having trouble finding it at the library. It's weird, though, because even when I searched for the title of our book, it didn't come up there.
That's the sequel. So the sauropod book that we have is the sequel. The theropod book is the original. But
I searched for the title of the book that we have in the library system, and it, like, didn't come up. So that's why I'm confused. Is it a very new book?
You look at Carmel?
Yeah, maybe I looked at the wrong library, because we have, like, two different libraries. Okay, I'll check it there, because I was like, why is
got
this
that
book
part out. I don't know if they know where
Don't tell them where we live. No, but no, I do need to get that book. But how do you feel, though, as kind of, I mean, you're a participant more in, like, a supportive / observational role. How do you feel that our first year of homeschooling has gone, and how are you feeling going into, you know, the new season?
Oh, great. I think it's going really well. I'm excited to keep going. I think the more we do it, the better we'll get. I think the skills we develop in one area will bleed over into another, in that, like, sometimes you have to do things several times before you start to master it. I think once that pattern is established, that will serve well in other things. The reading, I know that we're gonna, like, take off soon with the reading.
Well, the reading is one of those areas where I'm trying not to stress about the way I did before.
Once the reading happens, so many other things open up. You know what I mean? It'll all, like, cascade down, I think. Yeah, no, I mean, the reading is an area where I'm still in the process of working on not being stressed about reading. Because it's like, I feel like our son can, like, secretly read, but he just doesn't want to, like, put in the effort. But I'm saying, once he realizes that if he just pushes himself that little bit extra, that he will gain so much more. Once he sees results in that area. He actually loves books. He loves books. He loves making books. He got so excited about making another book today. That was the thing that I really liked. I have many criticisms for the language arts program that we've been using over the summer, but it's almost been all worthwhile because he was so excited. Because, like, instead of just having readers that came with it, there's, like, you get to tape them together, and then as you read the different pages, you paste in the correct illustration. He was so excited about that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he does love that. But I'm saying, once he, like, masters reading and starts reading other stuff, that will just open up all new things and other subjects that he's, like, maybe... That's the thing, is I think he would derive a lot of enjoyment from it. Yeah. But also, though, he really loves things where he can snip things and glue things. So, I mean, that really helped, too. Like,
There's like more. That's one thing that's been surprising because I'm generally like against workbooks. I feel like a lot of workbooks are a waste of time and it's busy work and it's just kind of blah. But there are certain workbooks that I've gotten for him that he actually just really likes because he just likes the snipping and the gluing. And I feel like that's worthwhile to consider as like, even if you like philosophically are against something, like I'm sort of like philosophically against workbooks. If you just have a child that really likes to sometimes snip and glue things that are like put together for them, like it's okay to like let them do that sometimes, you know?
I mean, it makes them happy, sure. I don't see why not.
Exactly.
But was there anything else we didn't talk about? I know there probably was.
I mean, I'm sure there was. I mean, there's like a lot of like what we were actually planning to do curriculum-wise this year. We didn't really go over
go
it all.
ahead. Yeah.
I mean, so the thing I'm probably the most excited about, well, I don't know. I'm so excited about a lot of things. I'm really excited about science because over the summer we started, like when we decided to start back up for the summer, I found a science curriculum that's all about dinosaurs and prehistoric life. And it's been so good, and the kids are loving it. And it's just like a short curriculum, though. I think it's like 13 weeks or something. So it's not meant to be a whole school year. It's like a supplementary. But from the makers of that curriculum, there are some other curriculums. So I'm going to get a full year length curriculum to do, you know, whenever we're done with the dinosaurs in the fall, we'll start into kind of an earth science, and you wanted to know if there's going to be clouds. There will.
Good.
So it's like clouds and volcanoes and like all that kind of stuff. So I'm really, really excited to do that, and that's like a group subject I'm gonna do with both kids, even though sometimes I'm surprised at like how much our 4-year-old is getting out of the dinosaur curriculum, and then other times I just feel like she's like floating along and like totally not with us. Like I don't really know. It's like she's doing it with us, but like
that's more her personality than I think her comprehension, because I think she soaks up a lot.
Because sometimes she'll tell me things like she's like, the earth was very hot, and then there was an ice age, and she'll like be going, and I'm like, wow, you were really paying attention. But then other times it's like,
and then there was a dragon, and then I fought the dragon.
No, that's the thing is that like, okay, part of this curriculum, there's like a part where like there's like a notebooking aspect where you kind of draw a picture and you talk about certain things that you've covered. Sometimes the things that she draws in the notebook, I'm just like, oh my god.
Yeah, right.
It's like, Emerald, why is the prehistoric plant wearing a princess crown? It's like, but still, I think it's nice for her to be with us, and I assume we'll just be repeating some of these sciences, you know, in a few years when he's older and she's, you know, a little older or whatever. So I'm excited to just continue on with the science from that same, you know, in that same vein, because that's like something that's working, and we're just going to keep doing it, and hopefully it just keeps working, and it's great. Although I will say that same curriculum that you were scoffing at with like the peg dolls and like the things is from those same people. But I mean, some people maybe are good at making a science curriculum, and maybe their language arts curriculum is for like a different. But so yeah, we've got our science. I've already mentioned we're continuing with the dimensions math. We're doing that. I got the dimensions math also for our preschooler, but it's very workbooky and busy worky, and like she's going through it too fast, and like I'm kind of not that into having her do it. But I have it for her just so she's not jealous of him having the book. But really, I'm getting like a kind of a preschool program for her from the same people that we got the science from that I'm going to be doing. But I'm probably only going to be doing that a couple days a week, just because she's joining us with his stuff so much that there's not going to be time to do it like every day. And I don't want to like push it on her. It's just kind of when she feels like it, I want to give her a little bit of concentrated time. So we're going to be doing that. I've got a history program. It was really hard to find a history program that met my needs, but I've got an ancient history program. It's called History Quest, and I think that it's going to be good, hopefully. You know, it starts with like, you know, Paleolithic times and like, you know, ancient peoples, and goes up. I don't really know exactly when it stops, whenever you transition from ancient history to Middle Times, whatever that is, question mark. But that should be interesting to do. That's another thing I'm going to do with both kids, but I mean, I assume that, you know, we'll have to repeat it with the other one later.
Obviously.
But she'll be there for that. So we're doing that. I'm considering adding a geography program that I saw called Around the World in Picture Books that I really want to do. And I mentioned the Shakespeare we're doing a lot of music. So we've been doing, since like last spring, we've been doing online piano lessons with both the kids. Mm-hmm. But I'm also adding now a program that's like it's like desk bells, and it supposedly teaches you pitch and also music theory and how to read music and stuff. So I think it will kind of be a good supplementary to kind of help with the piano, and also just to give more of like a general music idea. And it's like a little bit easier because the piano, I think, has been really good for them, but it is a little bit slow going. Mm-hmm. Whereas I think they can experience more immediate success with this kind of desk bell thing to kind of boost their confidence and keep them going. Especially, I think it will be good for our son, just to kind of help him with his piano. But I was especially drawn to it for our daughter because she's almost done with the preschool piano level. But I feel like she's still a little bit immature for the next level of piano. And even though I'll probably just start it with her whenever she's done with the preschool level, I feel I don't want her to get discouraged because she has such a good attitude about practicing, and she's so musical. So I wanted something to kind of bridge the gap, so she's not like just like this is too hard and not fun. So I wanted something a little more fun and a little faster going for her to do. So I'm excited about that. So we're doing a ton with music. I'm also doing more with art this year. That was a big regret from last year, is that I never really figured out how to do art. Mm-hmm. And that was something where I kept thinking I will cobble something together. I'll just do some picture studies or something, and I just didn't really do it, and I felt bad about it because I do think art is important. And it's like so often it's like I feel like I'm so focused on being like I will make sure we're doing the math and the reading and stuff, and it's like I want to make sure that the things that are important to our family, like art and music, should be represented. And now I think we've definitely amply covered the music. But art I have started doing more of. I got kind of a basic book that I've been working with from the library just to teach, all the basic, lines and forms and all that kind of stuff. And I'm also buying a art curriculum to start in the fall that has more like picture studies and information about like the different, known artists and also projects to do based on them that I know both kids are going to really like, especially our son because he's like super into art. And that's the thing, is that I felt really bad about not doing more concentrated artwork this past year because, he draws for like hours every day and he's super into it, and I want to nurture that and for him to feel supported and that like we value his interest. That's partially why we got this dinosaur curriculum, because it's something that he got really interested in. I want him to feel like supported and we value your interest and we can, follow what you're into. Mm-hmm. So the art is something that we're going to really be doing. We've been doing a little bit this summer, like I mentioned, but we're going to be doing more and more of that in the coming year. And I feel like there's even more. I feel like I'm doing like a lot. Oh, French. There's an area that I'm working on. Mm-hmm. I've struggled so hard to find to find materials for this, because they always say that the best time to learn languages is when you're super young, right? Mm-hmm. But most language learning materials that seem legitimate at all are for someone who already knows how to read. Mm-hmm. So not someone who's like 3 years old or 4 years old, or maybe like a new like 6-year-old or a 7-year-old. Because, most language curriculums you can get, it's like you're conjugating the verbs and you're writing them and you're reading them and all that. And it's like, our kids are not ready for that. They're very young. So to find decent language materials for them has been a struggle. Mm-hmm. And I tried a subscription service briefly. And I almost regret canceling it because weirdly the kids still talk about the words that the one day that we tried the subscription service, like the kids will still like randomly shout out the words from that like one day. It was very like aesthetically pleasing and twee, and like it vibrated so hard on like the aesthetic level, but I worried it was light on content. But maybe it wasn't, because like I said, months later the kids still remember it. But I mostly canceled it because
you're talking me into getting this again. No.
But I don't think I want to do it because it was so expensive. Yeah. It was like so expensive that I was like...
It's like the Montessori toys you were talking about.
I know, those are so expensive too. But, so I canceled that, and then I tried a few other, like I ordered some books from the library, and I didn't feel like I was going to be able to implement it well. Because I thought maybe I can just cobble something together and teach them like colors and stuff. But I felt not very confident about my pronunciation, since I'm obviously not a native French speaker either. But I finally found one thing that I really like, which is a set of books, and the kids love it. Like, every day they're like so excited to do it. It's a set of books, and I almost returned this when I first got it because I thought it looked very spindly. Like, the quality is not, like, the actual quality of the materials is not very good. The illustrations are nice, but the actual, just like the books themselves are like, it feels like thin copy paper where it's almost like hard to turn the pages because they're so thin that they're like stuck together. So it's like, that's not good. But the kids love it so much, and I really like the format. So every morning there's like it's like a set of 10 storybooks that you read through. But it also has like a QR code that links to a website that has audio of a native speaker reading it. And it has the little dings, like, you know, those read-along books that you have when you're learning how to read, where it dings when you turn the page. So you can, like, hold the book and, like, they read it to you in French, and you turn the page with them. And the kids love it, and we've been doing that every day. And, like, you know, we've just been doing that for a little while, so I don't know how much we're, like, gaining from it, but I think it's really good. And I want to add more, but I'm still, like, it took me so long to find this one thing that who knows how long it will take me to find more pieces to add to kind of, because it's not a very robust study of French, but it's a start, and that's better than nothing. And that's the other thing that I've really learned, is that, like, not to hold back on doing anything at all because I feel like it's not enough, or I'm afraid. It's better to do something and then add to it. So we're doing a little bit of French, and we're hopefully going to add to it over time as we figure out more that we can do. We also have some more things that we do every day, like some little books and things that we read. Like, we have one about, like, the solar system that we read, like, a page from every day, which is, like, a continuation of, we had one about animals last year, and this is, like, another one in the same series. It's, like, about, like, mysteries of the universe. It's stuff about, like, the moon and the stars and all that. And I feel like there's more. We're actually doing a lot. But anyway, I mean, I feel like I've like, talked and talked, so that's probably enough. But there's so much to do.
There is. I am awed and amazed by the amount that you have put into this. And I don't feel like you should feel like we're, like, behind at all, because I feel like compared to your average...
No, I know we're not behind. It's just, like, I always feel... People. I know we're not behind. I just always feel that pressure in my mind of, like, I want to make sure that we're not. Like, I always, you know, you always want to give your kids the best and make sure that, like,
and we're not trying to compare ourselves to, like, people that we know we can do better than. So it's
like, it's not like I think we're behind by, like, an average person's standards. It's just like, by my standards, could I be doing more? And the answer is always yes.
I look forward to giving our children a patriotic education, personally.
But a lot of people do. That's what I meant when I'm saying, like, different people have different goals for their homeschool. Of course, I know. But different people have different goals for their homeschool. And when looking for homeschool materials, you have to sort through materials that are made for different audiences. Like, there's a lot of patriotic materials out there that we could really... It would be easier to find.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. But, not to get off onto that tangent... Thank you for being on the Rob Burgess Show again.
Oh, yeah.
Burgess. I'm sure I'll see you soon.
Hopefully.
We'll see.
Join the Rob Burgess Show mailing list. Go to tinyletter.com/The Rob Burgess Show and type in your email address. Then respond to the automatic message. Also, please make sure to comment, follow, like, subscribe, share, rate, and review everywhere the podcast is available, including iTunes, YouTube, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Google Play Music, Twitter, Internet Archive, TuneIn, RSS, and now Spotify. The official website for the podcast is www.therobburgessshow.com. You can find out more about me by visiting my website, www.thisburgess.com. If you have something to say, record a voice memo on your smartphone and send it to therobburgessshow@gmail.com. Include voice memo in the subject line of the email. Also, if you want to call or text the show for any reason, the number is 317-674-3547. Until next time.